Hey, Jeremy.
Hey, Michael.
So I was sitting in a chair here in my office the other day, and I was looking at something, and I was very moved by it. You want to know what it was?
Well, I'm still listening, so I guess.
It's okay. Well, it's a diary. And when I say a diary, I mean a handwritten diary, not a published, edited for consumption afterthought, but a handwritten diary in these humble cardboard wrappers, if you call it that, by the photographer Margaret Bourke-White. And I'm a big fan of hers because she was extraordinary in so many ways. I find her really inspiring. But this is a diary of when she's in around 20 years old and she's starting to take photography classes.
Wow.
And it's, who's she writing it for? She's writing for herself.
How many pages are we talking?
Just looking at it now, it doesn't number the pages. Let's say about 80 pages.
Okay.
Maybe a little more. But she won me over from the start because on the first page, it says, "My diary, please respect it."
Well, that's spooky.
Well, she's writing it to me, right? I'm holding it at this moment. So whoever's holding the diary is being told, please respect it. I am respecting it.
That's
So you'd be moved too.
I am moved, and I'm not even holding it.
Yeah, so whoever picks this up sees that first page, and you feel like you are the audience. No, you're not I don't know if you're the audience. You are. She doesn't know that I'm going to be the audience. She's long dead. I love, love, love reading diaries, and that makes me sound like a creep in a way.
Well, that's right, because the diary becomes this object that is then for your consumption, but it's her life. Kafka, for example, didn't want his diaries published, or we wanted them destroyed.
Right. Well, that's okay. So it doesn't sound like she wanted this destroyed because she's telling the future to respect it. Actually, the Kafka then is a great example. I am so glad Max Brod didn't destroy them because I love Kafka's diaries. Millions of people love Kafka's diaries.
Yeah.
What would you think if he came back now? He literally wanted them destroyed. I don't think he's making that up. No, he wanted them destroyed.
Yeah.
So how are we supposed to feel? How am I supposed to feel reading this?
Yeah, he becomes, for us, he loses his agency and becomes a character.
It does become a character.
Is the Bourke-White diary, is it personal? Is it?
Well, it's personal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. One cool thing, she talks about wanting to take her camera everywhere. She goes on a date and she takes her camera, like stuff like that. It's totally personal. It's not written for posterity. She's very young. People keep diaries, and that's what they do.
Yeah.
So I think the beauty of reading a diary is you feel like you're reading something without artifice and just honesty. You're reading honesty. So when you're trying to recreate history or trying to get a primary source, what is more valuable than a diary?
Right. Well, the thing too in the book trade is that so much of it is dominated by, iconic figures. Take Bourke-White. You'd be thinking about her photographs, right? But there is material in the book market from anonymous figures.
Yeah, and the anonymous figures, they would have no realistic hope that their diary would be read in the future.
Yeah.
Actually, this comes to mind the great story of the Diary of Anne Frank. If she was keeping a diary for herself, but she did have literary aspirations, and she made that clear. And then she heard on a radio broadcast an exiled Dutch politician imploring people to keep diaries as a record of the horrors of the Holocaust. And she heard that, and then she thought, maybe mine will be read in the future. And she started kind of recrafting it. So she did have an eye to publication.
There's this diary coming up for sale that I'm kind of taking an interest in. It's at Swann on the 20th.
I've taken interest in this diary too.
We've discussed it.
I know. One of the top lots is this diary by an unknown person, a carpenter who's, semi-literate, about his experience in the Continental Army during the invasion of Quebec. And it has an estimate of $70,000 to $100,000.
So in the same sale, there's a letter by George Washington. And it's an autograph letter signed. Many of his letters, particularly during the war, were in the hand of an assistant, but this one's in Washington's own hand. So and this is not a trivial letter. Swann's headline is "Letter Anticipating the Coming British Campaign Against Philadelphia."
Does sound good.
Right. This is from January 1777, Morristown, New Jersey. Right.
It's a good year. Well, bad year.
Well, they had
I'm glad I'm not living then.
They had turned the tide with the Battle of Trenton. So, but this Washington letter, it has a slightly lower estimate than the Beale diary.
And for Benjamin Beale.
Right. This important letter by the first president of the United States is sitting in the sale alongside the diary of a carpenter. If you're Beale, Benjamin Beale, and you somehow come back to life a couple hundred years later.
You'd be pretty surprised. Someone handed you this catalog. You'd be pretty surprised.
Right. Yeah, I did okay, you know?
You'd be like, me and Joy.
What?
Actually, that'd be so bonkers. I'm side to side with
George Washington.
I know, the general, my boss, my supreme boss.
Yeah, exactly. Where Beale was in the moment, scribbling this down, like, you know, and the descriptions of his experiences. He's cold. There's no rum, sore feet. He's in the mud. So, and then centuries later, somebody's going to spend $100,000 on it, on his diary, 20 pages.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of fun to think about that.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun. But I'd like to learn more about this diary.
We're very fortunate now to have Rick Stattler, who is a specialist at Swann, who is running that sale. Welcome, Rick.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. We were talking here about diaries and manuscripts and material that is not intended to be preserved that somehow survives and then it surfaces later on. And this Benjamin Beale diary in your sale is such an artifact. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, sure. It's physically not very imposing, just basically a fist-sized little stack of paper that's, you know, crudely hand-bound and a little ragged around the edges. No proper cover. And it was kept by this young lieutenant while he was in military service during the Revolution. He was not in a position really to keep anything in really fine condition.
Yeah.
So it's held up pretty well considered.
Actually, just if we could stop there, as I was looking through the sale, the two top items are this, you know, in terms of valuation, are this Beale diary and the George Washington letter.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, so the estimate for the Beale diary is, what is it? It's
70 to 100,000,
something like that. And the Washington, and the Washington letter is $60,000 to $90,000. If a new collector walks into Swann and wants to talk about the two, you know, most exciting lots in the sale, you say one is a letter from George Washington, you know, in 1777, January, what a period. And the other is a diary by this anonymous carpenter. And they're both about the same value. What do you say to that collector to explain how that could be? How could it be that this anonymous figure has, you know, created something that of such great interest?
This diary is incredible. It's a major resource. And the Washington letter already been published, you know, pretty well known, and there's just 2 pages of it. So
yeah,
for a scholar, there's not a lot to dig into, but it's got George Washington's signature. So that's
right.
A very different audience.
Right. Well, we were discussing how one of the things I love about diaries is the immediacy, the rawness, this isn't intended for us to read all this time later.
Right.
And the fact that he is semi-literate makes it even more powerful, I think. Like, I'm right there with him during his suffering, and I'm experiencing the campaign.
Yeah, and because he's sort of quasi-literate and everything is spelled phonetically, one thing I love about it is sort of like one of the minor pleasures of doing this kind of work is you can hear his accent jump off the page when he spells something that's not how we would spell it.
Yeah.
Because that's just how he hears the word concern. He writes concerned.
Yeah.
And
that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. His grammar, his syntax, it's all right there on the page. And if you're dealing with somebody who's, hyper literate and articulate, you might not get that. You know, if you're reading Abraham Lincoln or Martin Luther King or something, you know, you're getting their oratory, but you're not really getting that kind of, the actual voice and the syntax, that kind of thing.
Although I do want to, on that point, I just want to note that I just chuckled when I saw the word prolly in his diary, spelled Prolly. I mean, that's very contemporary, you know.
Yeah, we speak the same way, right?
You'll see Prolly all the time.
Well, Rick, did you transcribe it yourself? Because this must have been really difficult. I'm looking at the handwriting.
Yeah, it was a project. And I didn't transcribe the entire diary, but I did read through the entire diary, and I try and do that with anybody's diary. the thing that sells the diary is liable to be anywhere within the volume. It could be 3 months in or 8 months in or whatever.
So tell us about this diary. Why is it important? Why is it exciting?
Yeah, I've been at Swann for 18 years, and I've only seen here, I believe, 5 proper Revolutionary War diaries. So they don't come along very often, and this is, I think, the most compelling of them all. Some of them are very fragmentary, or they only cover a couple of weeks, or they don't cover a very interesting stretch of service. But this one, where he's participant in a major important campaign, and he's describing incredible hardship, and we're getting all of this kind of personal detail out of it. For me, it really just puts you in the place and makes you realize the kind of sacrifices that people made to build the country. It's amazing. He starts the diary by saying, March 17th, 1776, the British troops left Boston, and I had the pleasure of going in with ours.
I love how these kinds of diaries and letters just locate you so quickly and so immediately in this like momentous historical moment.
Yeah,
but he doesn't know that that's what it is.
No, of course not.
Anonymous figure. He's a carpenter.
Yeah.
The peril of the moment comes through too. I mean, he thinks they're going to either be killed or and he spells it CILL, either be killed or captured at any moment, and
or die of smallpox.
Yeah.
Yeah, the options seem unlikely he's going to get home.
And to see
that's why I like working with manuscripts. This is all nonfiction, but you couldn't make it up.
You couldn't make it up. Yeah, that's right.
And so it's really tough once you have a diary in front of you and you look at it, it's just a lump of paper with bad handwriting, and you think, maybe tomorrow I'll deal with that one.
Oh no!
Because you don't know what you're going to get into, and it could be like this, a great narrative with a small obstacle of handwriting and spelling. But this tells a story. Once you figure out where he is and what he's doing, the story is all right there.
It's really weird how this does have a narrative stop. I mean, the diary ends with him marching across Vermont, finally getting home, and with very sore feet, and he gets his wages, and then I guess his war is over. Is that accurate?
Yeah, as far as I can tell, he didn't do any more fighting after that. He probably felt he had done his share.
And he makes it home. I mean, it's a happy ending.
It's a journey home, yeah.
Yeah, and you get the impression, like most good war diaries, he's able to get through it with a little bit of humor. Like even in the bleakest spots, he's looking to have a little bit of fun.
Yeah.
At one point, he gets back to Ticonderoga and he says, "I met a couple of ladies and we shared a cigarette. That's the first time I've done that in a long time."
Wow. Yeah. Now compare this to Civil War diaries, just briefly. You mentioned that diaries from the Revolutionary War are really scarce. I mean, if this was a Civil War diary from that period where they're not as hard to find, they're more common, would this stand out? It's not hard to come by a 20-page Civil War diary.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this would still qualify as an excellent Civil War diary. There's enough color and detail in there. But yeah, it wouldn't be nearly as special because there are just so many more Civil War diaries. We see a lot of those. I mean, a typical auction, I see, I'll have 5 or 10 Civil War diaries.
Right.
They're not too unusual to find. The really good ones are really special, but a pretty bland, mediocre Civil War diary is not a big deal at all. But yeah, even if this was Civil War, it would still be important.
As an artifact, it's wonderful that these things are still available and you can access them as scholars or as collectors or whatever it is. It's really cool.
And that they're still turning up, that they're coming out of people's attics today. It's just amazing.
It is. It really is. All right. Well, this has been a lot of fun, Rick. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Rick.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Love the idea of the unknown soldier, Benjamin Beale in this case. I have a story about another unknown soldier, a Civil War diary, though, a soldier who was at Andersonville Prison. And Andersonville Prison was one of the most notorious, maybe the most notorious Confederate prison, and it was in Georgia. And Union soldiers were taken there. And a ridiculous percentage died. I mean, the facilities were horrible. They barely got food. They were like gang wars. They had this like own society that developed, and I mean, it was you go there, and if you survive, you are lucky. So that's basically all I knew about Andersonville Prison. And I see this diary come up and it says, soldiers experience Andersonville Prison. I'm like, I want to learn about that. So I buy it to learn about it as much as anything else. So the diary comes and I start reading it, and it is astonishing. This soldier, DeWitt Spalding, he starts all like gung-ho, like, oh, I'm signing up for the war, da-da-da, what awaits me? And I think it's within 2 weeks he gets captured. So he barely saw any fighting, which, could be good in a way. But then he's taken to Andersonville Prison, which is horrific. And then the diary, he goes day by day about Andersonville Prison. He's being starved. He's getting sick. He's got pneumonia. He's like, there are rats everywhere. His handwriting starts getting shaky. He's like, I don't know if I'm going to make it to tomorrow. It is getting so disturbing and so honest at the same time. And there's a line like this. He's like, we haven't gotten food in days, and they say they'll give it to me if I swear allegiance to the Confederacy, but I'll never do that. I'd rather die first. Like this is like, it's cinematic almost, but yet it's so raw. So I mentioned his handwriting is getting shaky. It's getting lighter. And I'm like, this guy's not going to make it. And as I'm reading, I'm getting more and more invested in his story, obviously. This is a real person talking to me. And I'm like, I remember I took it out in an afternoon expecting to spend a few minutes with it, while I'm doing other, this book sale. I totally blocked it. I got into this tunnel vision. I had this experience, and I get to the last page, and the diary just ends. Just ends now, and I'm so invested in the story. What happened? Why did it end? Luckily, it ended because the diary ended. The page wise. So I'm thinking there's a chance he made it.
Yeah.
So then I have to do this incredible amount of research trying to figure out what happened to this guy.
Did the guy make it? Oh, see, that's what's great about the Beale diary is he tells you he goes home.
Yeah, well, I didn't know what happened here.
You needed closure.
It just ended. So I'm freaking out. I'm Googling around, and finally I find a newspaper clipping of his obituary. And his obituary from like 1920.
So
he lived to be a healthy old man. He had kids, he had grandkids, and I felt so relieved because by this time I had a sort of a relationship with him. I knew him.
Wow. Yeah.
And I put it down. I was like, all right, now I feel good about this. And I kept it at home. I had a nice protective box. I kept it at home for years, thinking this is really special to me. But, I had a client, a good client, who had repeatedly said to me, I want a Civil War diary, but I want a really special one. And he said it over and over. And finally, I was like, I got to let you know a little secret. I do have one at home. And I was thinking, this is going to the right person. He's going to respect it.
Right.
So I sold it to him, but I also put up a web page, with my full description to quote it to him. And that page was then floating around. He bought the book, was thrilled with the diary. And someone called me and said, I see you have this DeWitt Spalding diary. And I am DeWitt Spalding's great-great-granddaughter. Forgot how many greats. And I was like, oh, first I'm thinking, she's like, why do you have it? And then she's like, oh, no. She's like, that, this stuff disappeared, not disappeared, but, it was sold a long time ago. But she said, he's part of the legend of our family. We know all about him because of his incredible ability to survive and his fortitude. And it's just like, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. It's like courage, really. We exist.
If not for that fortitude, they wouldn't have ever been.
Right. So she was really, she was saying things that were incredibly powerful. And she said, I don't need the diary, but I would love to have the text. Can you talk to the current owner and see what you can do about that? So I called the current owner, and he took high-res pictures of every page, made a file. I sent it to her. She ultimately transcribed it all because the handwriting was pretty easy to read, but she spent time.
How long is this diary?
Maybe 80 pages.
Wow.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And she was so happy. She was like crying to me in a positive way.
Right.
How much this meant to her that she has the text now of her ancestor.
Of course.
That has been part of family lore. And the collector was thrilled to be able to put this together. And it was like, if this stayed on my shelf at home, this second part of the story never would have happened.
That's amazing. Think about her experience reading these passages that you're describing that was just so difficult to read. What was it like for her to think that this was my, I don't know what you said, great-great-great grandfather,
whatever. 2 greats maybe, yeah.
What's that like?
Well, I think there's pride that he didn't
Of course. No, I know, but just the emotional experience of that intimacy that even surpasses what you're describing in this Margaret Bourke-White diary, which still, that first line just blows me away.
Yeah.
Please respect me. That is so, that just in one sentence.
I know it does.
It does. It brings you into the power of diaries. It brings you into the hazards,
But I think me not knowing while I was reading what was going to happen to this soldier, where I happened to Margaret Bourke-White, really blew me away. Really blew me away. And I don't know. I just like how the whole thing ended in this.
Did the great granddaughter, did she know that it had been at auction, or did she just happen to?
No. She searches for him from time to time, and he knew her information about him. I think that's how she found it. So I think it was a Google match that came up.
I wonder what young DeWitt Spalding would think if he knew.
I know he's touching us emotionally. 170 years later.
No doubt about it. DeWitt Spalding had fortitude.
No doubt about it. He was an inspiration. He was an inspiration.
Wow, that's really cool. There's a collection of Apple materials, which I've had the privilege of working on and going through. The centerpiece of this collection is a set of notebooks. There are 23 notebooks. And when I first set out, and these notebooks were kept by Apple's first COO, is a guy named Delbert Yoakum, and he described them to me as engineering notebooks. So this is this is not a diary. This is what's going on at Apple in the 1980s. Notebooks span more than 10 years. Like you have conversations, including the day that Steve Jobs was ousted in 1985. Notes.
Violent.
Yeah, well, it was a corporate violence, but notes from that very day. It's important stuff. But the thing is, there's something like the Bourke-White. When I first set eyes on this thing, I had no idea what it was, and then I had the realization that nobody else has ever really looked at this. At least not.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So when I'm looking through the diary, I don't know what's coming next. Like, it's not like, I can read the back of the jacket.
Yeah.
Like, and other people have examined this. I don't know.
Right.
No one knows what's coming next. That makes
sense. And it's not like a letter that turns up at auction or a diary that turns up at auction where it's been cataloged. Somebody else has looked at it.
Yeah. No. It's super exciting. It is. Makes it much more personal.
Well, yeah, because there's this intimacy between your eyeballs, and your sensibility. And I think it's informed by the fact that if you're in the book market, you bring a different perspective to something like this. But you're the first person maybe looking at this through the lens of it being a historical document, as opposed to being, say, a young woman's diary when she's going on dates and taking photographs. And like in her mind, like there's no historical context. It's just her life.
Oh, I like that distinction. You're right. I'm looking at it as a historical document. But then when you read it, you connect with the person as a person too. Yeah. But I see your point. Yes, I'm removed later.
Yeah.
Looking at
and there
it,
are these opportunities that then something surfaces and you're like, I'm the first person to look at this, at least through this lens. He kept these notes purely as a memory aid for himself, right? What's going on around him, how he's connected with.
So he wasn't thinking of this as a view for posterity.
He was not at all, right? And
an accidental witness to history.
Exactly. He succeeds in capturing in incredible detail this momentous historical shift. The notebooks start before the Macintosh is introduced, right? They go throughout the 1980s into the mid-90s. So they begin before the Macintosh is introduced. They end with the arrival of the information superhighway, right?
I don't think people say that anymore.
I know, but they did in the 90s, right? And that's actually in one of the entries is right information superhighway and talks about all sorts of stuff.
Oh, really? Okay.
So you have this historical transformation. And he captures it in amazing detail, but that's not his intent. There's no intent along those lines. His intent is really to just.
He sounds like he's OCD.
Yeah, he's a very meticulous person, and it's a personality trait. But he accidentally captures all this really important stuff, and it makes me think of Samuel Pepys because Pepys did the same, and Pepys
accidental witness to history.
Yeah. Now, he's one of our best sources for some of the major events of the 17th century. The Great Fire of London, the Plague of 1665, the, restoration of the monarchy under Charles II. And Pepys captures all this. But he doesn't intend to. And he has no idea.
He's got the meticulous gene.
Yeah, it's even kind of similar in the sense that Pepys started keeping his diary because he wanted to keep track of his expenses. It's purely like practical consideration, motivating it. But he does, in the course of doing so, he captures really major events that nobody else we don't have any comparable sources. It's written in this personal code, right? But he left the sort of the guide to the code with his books, with his diary.
Oh, that is funny because I know people couldn't figure out, what's the code? We got to crack the code. How are we going to crack the code? And someone's like, oh, here's the code in this library.
Right. Obviously, a lot of personal content in Pepys's diaries, and a lot of it is like kind of embarrassing, and much of it is disturbing. But there's also like this mundane stuff, like he talks about cutting himself shaving, and he thinks it's a dull razor. But he also,
I don't know if I want to read that.
What?
It's like a diary about nothing.
Well, okay.
Yeah,
but he also captures the fire of London and all these important events.
About, I cut myself shaving today. It takes some effort to write it down.
Is that
really in the diary?
Yeah.
Making that.
Yes, it's stuff like that and really petty stuff. And he's a penny pincher and also, chasing after women.
The opening of Ulysses is Buck Mulligan shaving. I'm just fixated on this shaving thing. If that's really in Pepys, look at that. Joyce thinks that's word that he began a book with. Yeah. I blew my mind.
Just now.
Just fixed down the shaving thing. I hope the shaving thing's real in Pepys.
I'll find it. Hold on. He writes, up betimes and shaved myself after a week's growth. But Lord, how ugly I was yesterday and how fine today.
That actually is entertaining.
Okay, no, but the next sentence, seeing the city all the way, a sad sight indeed, much fire being still in. So
wait, he's writing about shaving during the fire of London, literally?
Yeah, and how good he looks after a week's growth, and then he shaves it up.
The city's being destroyed.
Yeah, but meanwhile,
good.
Right.
Oh, that's exquisite. That's exquisite in its absurdity.
Whatever's going on, he wrote it down. That's what Virginia Woolf loved about it. As from a literary perspective. Pepys's diary was published because John Evelyn's diary was a commercial success. They're contemporaries. They were friends. John Evelyn was a co-founder of the Royal Society.
Pepys was president of the Royal Society. The first edition of the greatest book of the 17th century, Newton's Principia, the first edition title page, boom, just as big or nearly as big as Isaac Newton's name, Isaac Newton's Principia Mathematica. You see the name Samuel Pepys right there, giving the license for the book, right at the title page.
Yeah.
So, I was thinking about this guy, going through town, shaving or whatever. He was a big deal.
We wouldn't know him if not for the diary. I mean, you might know him as having been president of the Royal Society, but that wouldn't make him a pivotal figure in the history of literature. And there's this essay that Virginia Woolf wrote about Pepys and Evelyn. Because she comes along and she loves the minutiae and the absurdity and the vanity and the lack of filter that Pepys's diary has, right? So let me read Virginia Woolf. The essay is called Rambling Round Evelyn, and she writes about Evelyn's diary. It's sometimes composed like a memoir, sometimes jotted down like a calendar, but he never used its pages to reveal the secrets of his heart, and all that he wrote might have been read aloud in the evening with a calm conscience to his children.
I love the word that she used, secrets, because that validates me feeling, I don't know, like I'm a voyeur. And that's not so bad because there's a feeling. So if it's secret, you feel like you're getting something honest. And I think that's the joy in reading diaries. Because you don't feel so much alone. You're connecting with somebody. And you read Evelyn and you're like, wow, something must be deeply wrong with me. And then you read Pepys or you read Kafka's diaries or you read the fiction of Woolf and Joyce.
Yeah.
And then you feel like you have simpatico, like you are part of, you're part of human nature and you're not an oddball. I think Harold Bloom, somebody said, I'll say it right now, but you read to not feel alone.
I feel like Pepys didn't reach his full meaning until Virginia Woolf came along and Joyce came along and then showed us the incredible range of possibilities that emerge when you start writing about people cutting themselves shaving.